While Pro is working in Portland, Congress is working in Washington, D.C., we're going to talk to the man who's writing the bill to bring sales tax fairness to the U.S. Congressman Steve Womack from the great state of Arkansas, welcome to the Pro Convention.
Bill, thank you so much. It is a great honor to be with you.
Well, thank you. I understand you have a perfect voting record in Congress. Never missed a vote?
Well, I've only been here 18 months, so you have to kind of put it in context. But in the 112th Congress, I think you can count on two hands the number of members who have never missed a vote in the 112th Congress. And knock on wood, I'm one of them. But really all that means is I haven't had a personal tragedy or an illness or something that would preclude me from being in Washington during votes, which is precisely why I'm unable to join the group in person because we are in session and I want to keep that perfect voting record intact. That's why they sent me to Washington.
Well, you're doing some other things. Now, let's get right down to the meat here. You have a small business background, right?
I do. I was in broadcasting. In fact, at the age of 22, I flipped a switch one day on November 9th of 1979 that established a new radio station in northwest Arkansas. And our family still has that radio station. I ran it for 11 years. And so that's the primary small business background. But I was also, for a couple of years in my adult life, a financial consultant with Merrill Lynch. And then I've had some military duty and a few other things, and of course a mayor.
You had 30 years Arkansas National Guard.
I
You
did.
saw active duty in the Mideast.
I did. Right after 9/11, I was commanding an infantry battalion in the Arkansas National Guard, and there is a peacekeeping force that operates between Egypt and Israel, between the Sinai Peninsula and Israel, called the Multinational Force and Observers. And a U.S. battalion occupies that area and is the leader of that contingent. And right after 9/11, the unit that was scheduled to go to the MFO, the 101st, had to go to Afghanistan instead, so they backfilled them with the Arkansas 39th Brigade, 2nd Battalion that I commanded. So yeah, I left in October. The ashes were still smoldering in New York and in Washington when I was alerted to duty, and I took a task force to the MFO in the Sinai in Egypt, and we did that mission, the MFO mission, in early 2002.
And then you were mayor of Rogers, Arkansas, did a lot of economic development. And one of the things you did was you were a customer of Bedford Cameron Video, fair enough?
Fair enough.
There's 300 people out there who'd like to do business with their city government. What advice could you give them?
Be invested in your community, and not just in economic terms, because the people I'm talking to, I'm sure, have investment, economic investment in buildings and storefronts and floor plans and hire people, those kinds of things. Bedford was one of those unique stores that was heavily involved in the community.
Involved versus invested. So you're saying involved is a form of investment.
It is. Because the quality of life in the community can be directly traced back to the involvement of the businesses that make up that community. So I'm a big believer that you should have your employees involved in things like city council or school board or PTA or Little League, coaching Little League baseball, those kinds of things. So Bedford did a lot of that. And so I know these folks. They're leaders in our community. And so it's very easy to want to do business with somebody who is not just invested economically, but also applies leadership and rolls up their sleeves and helps make that community better.
If you still owned and operated your small business, what would you be doing right now today to be ready for the Affordable Care Act?
Wow. I'm sure I would be having conversations with my accountant about the implications of all the taxes and all of the nuances of the Affordable Care Act, and depending on how many people I had, of course, would drive some of that discussion. But I often say that where there is a 10-foot wall, if you're a competitive business, you're looking for the 11-foot ladder. You're looking for the way around as much of this as you can, because the bottom line is important to you. I think what's happening right now is small businesses are circling the wagons. They're pulling themselves in. They are not expanding businesses and hiring people and taking the risks that go with running a small business like that because of the fear of the unknown. When you can't compute your external costs accurately, you get very conservative in how you expand your business. So I think it's basically a circling of the wagons, and I hear it from businesses every day, large and small, that the unknowns here and the fact that they expect that the cost of operating that business is going to go exponentially higher, that they're just simply not moving on plans to expand. And it's sad.
Now, there's some cynicism out there that Congress can't do anything because you got this side of the aisle and that side of the aisle.
I get that a lot.
Accurate to say you're probably considered a conservative Republican?
Very.
There's potentially somebody we might call a liberal Democrat, named Congressman Speer from California, right?
That
you guys are
accurate.
like this, right?
I don't think there would be any argument on my side or her side
Okay.
of that characterization.
So how did you guys get together, and what are you trying to do?
Well, Bill, I think it goes back to something that you're not going to see on network TV and on cable TV. Bipartisanship does happen in Washington. I know that's breaking news to the people probably watching this. But on occasion, there are those issues that bubble up that we can agree on. Now, there are some that we don't agree on, and we'll leave that for another discussion. But where it concerns the bill that I've authored with my co-sponsor on the Democrat side, Jackie Speer, this is something we both truly believe in. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. It's a small business issue, and it's a fairness issue. And when those things are in the center of the discussion, they're easy to wrap your arms around. And so Jackie and I have co-authored this bill to bring some fairness back to our retail community. And look, we both have perspectives on it. You know, I bring the perspective as a mayor, and so I know what retail development did in my community. And she has other perspectives as well. But and there are other things that I've worked with the other side of the aisle on to champion. Those things aren't going to make the headlines at 5:30 because they're, you know, that doesn't provide for the narrative I think that the media would like for you to see, and that is that we're divided, we're partisan, we're gridlocked, and we can't get anything done. On this subject, we agree.
Okay, so it's a fairness issue in your mind?
Oh, to me, that's the central theme. That's why my bill is called the Marketplace Equity Act. It's about equity. It's about fairness. And I can't, you know, there's a lot of other things associated with it, but to me, the central theme is equity, fairness, parity between the local retailers and the emergence of the what we call now the remote seller, the out-of-state, somewhere else. Nobody knows where it is, but they're providing the same merchandise direct to your door. So, you know, I'm a free market believing guy. I'm a very conservative person. I believe in lower taxes, and I think this is a bill that gives people like me and the conservative element a great opportunity to talk about free enterprise and lower taxes.
Lower taxes, but some people say your bill raises taxes.
Well, I would argue that a tax that has no enforcement mechanism is not a tax, that it doesn't exist.
Because it doesn't get paid.
Because it's not going to get paid. Oh, we all know what's happening. We know that people are going online, taking advantage of a lack of enforcement, and not remitting the taxes back to their respective states or their respective communities. We know that's going on, and it's getting more egregious over time. And so I think that this is, you know, when we go back to the Quill decision of '92, which I would recommend everybody look at and get a good basis of understanding on it, the Supreme Court said that a state that doesn't have, a business doesn't have a nexus to a certain state, that state can't compel them to collect and remit. But if you'll develop a basis for that information, and use that in the context of this argument, I think you'll agree with me that the Supreme Court was inviting Congress to intercede. I think we ought to RSVP that invitation.
So in your mind, the legislation would empower the states to do what?
My bill is very simple. It is a bill that gives the states the authority to compel a remote seller to collect and remit the taxes back to the jurisdiction, regardless of whether they have a nexus to the state. It's as simple as that. Now, there's some other provisions of the bill that we can talk about, but it's a states' rights and a fairness issue. Just give the states the authority. States don't have to do it if they don't want to do it. I'm sure they would all want to do it.
They need the money.
They have to.
Yeah.
But it gives the states the authority pursuant to what the Supreme Court ruled in 1992. It's as simple as that. Now, there's a companion bill in the Senate. It's a little different than ours. Not markedly different, but my bill, I call my bill more enabling in nature and not so instructive in nature. We don't tell the states to do it. We don't tell them how to do it. We just allow them, if it's passed and signed into law, the opportunity to do it, and then gives them a framework by which it can be done.
Now, there's people saying, I don't know how to collect the taxes in all the various regions within a state. Your bill requires the state to solve that how?
It does. Well, my bill says, states, if you're going to do this, then you're going to have to provide the software with which to make it happen. And so whether you agree to do a blended rate or a uniform state rate,
okay,
or a destination rate, whatever you do, and those are the three options that my bill provides, whichever option you choose, you have to provide the retailer the software with which to make that happen. And look, Bill, this stuff's off the shelf. It's pretty simple. We're part of a streamlined sales tax compact. Many states involved in that, so we've proven that is easily done. And so that software is readily available. States have to provide it.
So you're saying that's really not a valid argument against the bill?
It's not an issue. If the state is going to compel that retailer to collect and remit, then they have to provide the software to do it.
So you're a small business person, and you're seeing this legislation possibly going through Congress, possibly not. You don't have the capacity to write a huge check for a campaign contribution. How do you influence policy? How do you let your voice be heard in Washington?
I believe this bill is going to pass sometime. Whether it's this Congress or a future Congress, I don't know. I just see the glide path of retail sales and internet sales, and I know what's going to happen to the retail community. The question is, how many small business obituaries do we have to read before we recognize we have a problem? So it's a great question you ask. If it's going to get passed, it's going to happen at the grassroots level. There's nothing that can take the place of Mr. and Mrs. Jones, small business retail owner in wherever USA, picking up the phone. Don't have to have a checkbook. Pick up the phone. Better yet, this is an election year. You're going to see these members campaigning in August and again in October on their breaks. To find them at a public forum, engage them in conversation, and just say to them, Mr. Congressman, I desperately need your help. If they're a member of the Republican side of the aisle, they're talking about small business every day. And just say, I'm a small businessman, but I'm losing. And this is an issue that affects me that I want to help educate you on, and I need your help. And so I think if you do that at the grassroots level, and I'll go a step further, if you're a policeman or a fireman, if you're a superintendent of a school, if you're a mayor, anybody in the community that's invested in that community, you must know that the more of these sales that take place out of state over the internet and less in downtown America, the more the impact is going to be felt by our local governing jurisdictions. And so it's got to be a grassroots level. And I can tell you, since we've introduced this bill, I can't tell you how many members of Congress, my colleagues, have come to me and says, you know, I had people show up in my office that ran a camera store or ran a jewelry store, and they're talking about this issue. And I didn't know you had a bill on that. Thank you very much for introducing the bill, and now I've signed on to the bill. We're up to, nearly 50 co-sponsors. And the more this information gets communicated by the people affected, the better off we're going to be. These small businesses don't have lobbies here in Washington. They're not knocking on the doors of members of the House and the Senate every day. But you have an opportunity, and this year a unique opportunity, to see your member of Congress or your senator on the campaign trail and help enlighten them on this issue.
So you're suggesting just go in like a human being and talk to them?
Absolutely. A handwritten letter.
Does that get to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we get a lot of form letters, and I don't read all the form letters, but the handwritten letters, absolutely. It tells me that individual is so passionate about this issue that they've taken their time to handwrite a letter to you. And I get a lot of those. And I read them, and I respond to them. And I know that it's coming from the heart. And look, this is an issue that when accurately articulated to the member will get it. And I think you got a great chance to sell the member on becoming part of this effort and helping us see success.
If I have an audience with my congressperson, should I talk about just sales tax? Should I talk about sales tax and health care and financing and terrorism, and where does it start and stop?
Well, obviously jobs and the economy are critical in this election year. And you can bet that your member of Congress or your senator that's up for re-election has a pretty good working knowledge of the major issues, whether it's the 0103 tax cuts or the issues regarding PPACA, the health care law, or a lot of the other issues that just are on the front page every day. The internet sales tax issue is not on the front page every day. So they already have a working knowledge of those other issues, but in the context of what can we do to help small business, create jobs, I think you have to bundle those in with internet sales tax. So I would lead with internet sales tax and just say, look, I'm a retailer, and you may not know this, but the inaction by Congress is affecting my business, and I'm concerned with how much longer I'm going to be able to make it. And I always advise them to just tell the truth. That is, I am becoming a glorified showroom for the remote seller, and that's just simply not fair. And look, I think this. If you believe in small business, then you probably are a believer in the free enterprise system of this country. And I don't begrudge the remote seller. That's a business model that works for a lot of people.
Sure.
So as a free market believer, I am all over giving the discerning shopper the opportunity to pick and choose how they shop, when they shop, where they shop, for all of the right reasons, based on a business model, not on tax policy. Not because you can avoid taxes on one model when you can't on another. I think anybody that is rational in thought would have to agree with that statement, that that's unfair, and it should be fixed. And the only entity that can fix it is Congress.
Congressman Steve Womack, thank you for your leadership.
My pleasure. It's great to be with you. I wish your convention much success, and with the help of all these folks watching, we're going to have success on the Marketplace Equity Act. And I congratulate you guys for your interest.
Super, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.